The female lead tells women's stories. Remarkable, diverse, inspiring. An educational charity promoting positive female role models who show the many different routes to success and fulfillment.
So often I hear people saying, oh, how do I get started? How do I do this? How do you do it? You just start. You have to begin. And it won't be perfect, and it'll be messy, and it'll be hard. But you're doing something, and you're on your way.
Empowering future generations of women through films and a book of 60 women donated to 18,000 schools in the UK and USA, reaching millions of young people. And through our female lead societies, we help girls to discover new role models that speak to their passions, ambitions and careers. Through our research into social media and mental health, we found a solution to the negative impact of social media on teen girls. Through a simple intervention which encouraged girls to follow different influencers, we were able to change their entire social media experience and sense of well-being. We called this campaign Disrupt Your Feed, and it reached 20 million people on social, with 330 million impressions all over the globe. So what's next? As well as inspiring girls, we're now finding ways to measurably improve the lives of older women through data, research, and the stories of those who have overcome challenges and found their own personal versions of success. We're a long way from being finished. Join us in our mission.
Are we going to talk about women's rights again? Yes, we're going to talk about it until there's balance.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Female Lead LinkedIn Live. I'm Edwina Dunn, the founder of the Female Lead, and we are going to be working with our lovely friends at No7 and talking about why women are sleeping so badly. So we're going to learn more about sleep and why it's so important to both physical and mental well-being, especially at this moment in time as we prepare for the clocks to go back an hour. So we're all looking forward to, I think, an extra 60 minutes of sleep in that precious moment before we wake. I'm Edwina Dunn. I'm founder of the Female Lead, and at the Female Lead, we understand that women face many challenges, both in the home and at work. And our very demanding lives can impact our quality of sleep. From being connected all day long, using our phones and laptops, it's really important we learn to put our mind and body first. And this often starts when we assess our own sleeping patterns. So getting 8 hours of sleep is often a dream. Far too many women don't get that. And I think we're going to hear about some fantastic research that No7 Beauty Company has found and revealed, which is that over 70% of women suffer from some sort of sleep disturbance. So it's something we absolutely must change together. So whether we learn new mechanisms to help us relax our minds or delve deeper to understand what we consider as a restless night, and is that restless or insomnia? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to try and shine a light on how a good night's sleep is the very best tonic for making us all feel fantastic. As usual, we're going to have your questions, so please don't hold back and add them to the chat. But for now, let me introduce you to our really awesome panelists. So let's start with Dr. Eleanor Bradley. She's the science manager at No7 Beauty Company. Ellie has conducted research projects in skin aging and health, meaning she's absolutely perfect to comment on topics which include impact of the environment on skin health and how aging impacts skin structure and formation and science of skincare. So welcome, Ellie. We have Dr. Nerina Ramlarkan. I hope I pronounced that right. I should have checked with you. Dr. Ramlarkan is an independent sleep expert, a trained neurophysiologist with more than 25 years of experience. She spent a decade conducting sleep and wellness programs at the Nightingale Psychiatric Hospital in London, and she coaches on burnout prevention at Ashridge Business School. She's the original founder of Bupa's Corporate Wellbeing Solutions and the author of Tired But Wired, I love that title, Fast Asleep, Wide Awake, and the Little Book of Sleep. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then finally, but by no means least, we welcome Daisy Muskell, who's radio presenter and documentary maker of Insomnia and Me. She's the host of the breakfast show on Kiss FM and the youngest ever to do so in the history of commercial radio. Well done. On August the 10th, Daisy debuted her first documentary, and it was all about following her sleep disorder. It was a critically acclaimed documentary and became the 13th most searched term on Google right across the UK in the day it came out, showing just how important this subject is. She's also one of this year's Media Rising Stars. So we're going to look at the benefits of a good night's sleep, right? So let's start, please, with a question for everyone. Let's start, please, with Nerina. The last 12 months have, I think, really affected all of us, the quality of our sleep. I think it's had a role in all of our lives. Why? Let's start with why is getting a good night's sleep so important?
Well, it's a lovely question to start with. I mean, there's a reason why nature has designed us to spend a third of our lives sleeping. You know, there's an intelligence in that design. And when we sleep well, we're restored on every level, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, I believe spiritually as well. You know, we wake up feeling creative, inspired, looking forward to the day ahead. It gives us a better chance of being happy. So when we sleep well, and we can talk about what that means, we produce all sorts of hormones that make us feel good, the well-being hormones like oxytocin and serotonin. But if you think about the skin, we produce human growth hormone, which repairs the skin, rejuvenates the skin, and it protects the skin from damage. But I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many reasons why sleeping well is absolutely vital for our health on every level.
Ellie, how do you think about this?
Well, obviously, I mean, my interest is in skincare and skin biology. And as to Nerina's point, you know, nighttime and sleep is when the skin does renew and repair itself. So we do know that there's things called circadian rhythms or body clocks, as some people refer to them, and they exist in the skin as well. So actually, nighttime is a time when skin does repair itself, skin cells renew, skin cells turn over. And that does have an effect on how our skin appears. And, you know, sometimes people say, oh, I've had a bad night's sleep and my skin looks a bit, you know, can feel a bit tired, can have some issues. And we've done a big bit of research as a No7 Beauty Company. And we found that actually over the last 12 months, over 40% of women felt that their lack of sleep had an impact on their skin and felt it actually aged them by over 2 years. So you can see that actually sleep is so important for skin health and appearance. And, you know, some of these stats just do show how that can manifest in terms of how the skin looks. And as Nerina mentioned, you know, nighttime is a time for repair. Daytime, we think about protection. In the daytime, skin's too busy being bombarded by sunlight and pollution and all these things that can stress the skin out. So nighttime is really that time where skin and the body as well can reset and renew. So it really is important for skin health.
I know when I have a bad night's sleep, I actually feel like I'm grey in my skin the next day. So I'm sure there's a science to something like that. But yeah. Daisy, what have you discovered about the importance of sleep and the role of sleep?
I've suffered with insomnia since I was around 9 years old. So it's been a really, really long time. I'm 24 now. So for much of my life, I've had problems with sleep. And most recently, I've been diagnosed with insomnia, which is something that we explored in my documentary. And I think often people think of the physical effects that having a lack of sleep or suffering with insomnia can have on the body. But I really notice and I really struggle with the mental health side effects of not getting enough sleep. I think when you're sat up in the middle of the night, tossing and turning, the world can feel like a very isolating place. And I think thoughts and fears and emotions that you're going through in your waking life can just be amplified in the middle of the night. It's like your mind is racing and you cannot get any shut eye whatsoever. And I also find that when I don't get enough sleep, the next day I'm not able to tackle or handle my emotions in the same way as I am able to when I get a good night. So I think it affects both the physical and mental side of ourselves. And it just, it just reinforces how important sleep really is as part of our routine.
Yeah, so true. I think we've all felt that sort of fuzziness after a night's sleep and just not able to conquer the same things. Nerina, in your sort of line of work as a sleep expert, what do you find is the most common factor that's the reason that women can't sleep?
Well, at the moment, certainly, I'm seeing a lot of women saying things like family stress, life stress, conflicting responsibilities, juggling responsibilities. And we saw a lot of that during the pandemic, where a lot of people, I mean, both men and women, but I saw a lot of women who came to me saying, I'm trying to keep things ticking over at home as well as working. As well as trying to keep my relationship going. Some of these women are dealing with perimenopausal issues or menopausal issues. So there are lots of things. And I think the backdrop to all of this is that our world is constantly changing, that all the change creates a lot of uncertainty. And if you think about I'm a physiologist, so I have to talk about physiology. We consist of 70 odd trillion cells, and every cell contains the DNA that should be coded to give us good sleep. It is encoded to give us good sleep, but our world is constantly changing and it's become so noisy and so fast paced and so driven, and there's just constant information coming at us. So we're constantly working against the limits of our physiology, which affects our nervous system. It pushes us into survival mode. And when we're running in survival mode, we don't sleep. We have to thrive in order to sleep well, So I think it's all of that. But in the last 20 odd months, that's become particularly the case. It's brought everything to, I think, a real crux point.
Yeah, we did a survey, amongst women, and we revealed with Dr. Terry Apter this mental load that women are carrying that means exactly what you've described there, the juggling of so many things. And it really does seem to come across as quite a burden that they're all feeling right now.
Because I think women's roles, they're changing, and thankfully, the work of people like yourself, it's our roles are changing, but we are taking on more. We're not necessarily relinquishing things, So we have women, juggling their careers and trying to break through that glass ceiling and trying to do well as keeping things going at home and everything that brings, And I think something has to give, and often it's sleep. It's sleep when we most need it, because it's one of our greatest resources, is to get a good night's sleep so we can face whatever we have to deal with in our waking hours.
So let's deal first then with sort of what happens when we're not getting enough sleep. What are the sort of ravages? What are the things that happen? Let's do the negative first. What goes wrong when we're not getting that sleep?
Yeah. Well, we're remarkably well equipped to deal with the odd night of bad sleep. So if we can't just put that out there straight away, we're far more resilient than we think we are. And, if we weren't, we would be extinct as a species, probably. So we're all equipped to deal with the odd night of bad sleep, but it's when it happens night after night after night. And the two most common sleep problems are difficulty getting to sleep and difficulty staying asleep, waking between 2 and 4 in the morning, and then you just can't get back to sleep. And, as Daisy said, your mind is racing, all the thoughts, all the worries, things that you can deal with in your waking hours suddenly become very magnified in the early hours, and you're there. You feel very alone with that. So it can initially start to make us feel very tetchy, impatient. It just takes the edge off your quality of life and your general appreciation of life. But if that goes on for too long, then it starts to affect your health. And how it affects your health, I think we all have a kind of Achilles heel, something that happens when we're not getting enough sleep. Ironically, I do this work because I once had huge problems sleeping myself. But for me, if I'm getting run down and I'm not getting good sleep, I'll get cold sores and I'll get psoriasis. Now, I haven't had that for a while, but that's typically what will affect me. For some people, it'll be migraines. For others, it'll be IBS or be neck and shoulder tightness. And then it starts to impact on mental health. Things start to seem a lot less worse, Is that right? A lot less good. We lose a lot less good. You wouldn't think I communicate for a living, but we lose our ability to be optimistic and look forward to life. And then when it starts to affect mood even more, then it becomes pervasive. That's when you're looking at things like anxiety and depression, which are leaning into clinical.
So Daisy, you've obviously gone through sort of sustained periods of, having to cope with that, being awake when everyone else is asleep. How have you learned to deal with that lonely hour?
It's really difficult. And I always say that is the hardest part for me, is the fact that it feels like at times my body is broken, and it's extremely frustrating feeling as though you're the only one up in the world and you're the only one that's body doesn't work. And it's, as I said, I think you don't have someone to turn to. I can't call up my mom or my friends because they're also sleeping as well. So it can feel like you're dealing with this on your own. And especially, when you're feeling anxious about the next day as well, if you've got a heavy workload on, I often find that I think my industry it's competitive like any industry, and it's very male dominated. And there have been many of times I absolutely haven't felt up to going to work. But I feel as though it's not acceptable to call in and say that I haven't had a good night's sleep, and so I'm incapable of, carrying out the duties I need to do for the day. I think there's a certain amount of competitiveness as well, and feeling as though, as women, we have to constantly be on our game. And so things like sleep, they don't get prioritized because we have 101 things that we're trying to get through in our waking life in the daytime. So it's a lot. The early hours in the morning, they're very, very lonely. I actually found that finding a community of fellow sufferers is really, really beneficial, because they will understand exactly what you're going through. And more often than not, they will also be up and struggling. So just having someone to talk to, having an outlet for those emotions is really, really beneficial during those hours.
Yeah. And I guess, that group of friends, like-minded people, they can share their coping mechanisms and their ideas for, I suppose, going through this loneliness of those quiet hours when everyone else is tucked up in bed and you just feel, it was really interesting when I was talking about this event. I was getting messages as I posted from people in other parts of the world saying it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm still awake. And they were on social saying I'm awake. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because you can pick up on those conversations, but they're not your time zone. And that's where I guess we have to be a bit careful.
I think it's a double-edged sword as well with social media, because as much as it's great to connect with people, we are constantly taking the world to bed with us with our mobile phone, you know, charging next to our bedstand, so that you can sort of get into a rabbit hole of getting sucked in by what you see online. And it, you know, by the time you check the time, it's 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So that can definitely make the problem worse too. But then to combat the loneliness, it's something that I will often reach to.
Ellie, what can you offer that, you know, are women out there, you know, who are worried, you know, perhaps, you know, because of your expertise, about some of the, you know, the exposure that late nights, not enough sleep have on their, you know, sense of confidence, maybe their appearance, you know, what are the things that you've learned that can help?
I mean, it's a really interesting question, because as I say, we do know that a lack of sleep can impact the skin and actually how people feel about their own skin. And that's most important, isn't it? You know, in terms of confidence and how people feel in terms of, you know, as I say, people sometimes do feel they're looking a bit older if they're chronically lacking in sleep. But an acute sleep can have impacts on the skin as well, in terms of, you know, you might lack radiance, feel a bit duller skin. Sometimes you have hanging eyelids that can affect the appearance as well. And even things like fine lines and dehydration can be a cause. But for me, it's really about skin health. So what I will say, I mean, there are products that can help with some of these concerns. But the most important thing for me, I think, is that the fact that sleep is a time when skin repairs and recovers, and the time when skin does renew. And actually, it's really important for skin barrier health. So skin barrier is the top layer of the skin. And people sometimes forget that the skin is an organ and has a function. So for me, it's about the functionality of skin and actually helping to protect that skin and support that skin barrier, which will help make skin more resilient to kind of daily stresses. So what I really do recommend is trying to, at night time, find products that are quite nourishing for the skin. So a night cream is a great thing that you might want to put on before you go to sleep to really help support that skin barrier. So things like ceramides in products, shea butter, some of these things that will help support that skin barrier and help in the morning. You will wake up hopefully with more radiant looking skin, and it will just feel that bit better and more hydrated. So that's my kind of top tip. I really think it's about skin health and remembering skin's an organ and trying to encourage and nourish the skin with some of these nice ingredients.
Wonderful, thank you. So, so in your respective industries, what positive changes have you seen about how women are spoken to about their sleep? You know, is the conversation changing about sleep? Is there more help? Is there more known?
I think I've definitely noticed there is a certain amount of stigma attached to struggling with your sleep. And I think that there are many things, you know, that we do in our waking life that can affect sleep, like using phones or, you know, drinking too much caffeine. But I think when it becomes a chronic problem, it can often feel like you're being blamed for having issues with your sleep, which can be really frustrating. And it can almost stunt that conversation, because for me personally, and I found this in people that responded to my documentary, until someone opens up that conversation and says that they struggle with their sleep, I'm not sure that everyone knows what that can feel like and what that impact can feel like on your body after a prolonged amount of time. But I do think that attitudes are sort of changing. I've definitely seen in my industry, from working from home over the past year and a half, that I am prioritizing other areas of my life now, which involve my health and wellness and my sleep as well. Whereas before it was all about work. I think that many people have been given back a certain amount of quality of life from working from home, whereby they can prioritize things that work in their best interest, as opposed to prioritizing things surrounding work all of the time.
That's a really good point. Narina, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, globally, the sleep industry is worth billions of pounds and billions of dollars. So there's a lot that goes into creating environments and products for people to be able to sleep well, you know, from mattresses and pillows and blackout blinds. So it's definitely a lot more out there in the world, this understanding now that we need to sleep well. And was it Arianna Huffington was one of the people who she had a big effect, didn't she? A tipping point when she said, what did she say? Better sleep improves every aspect of our lives. So I tried to memorize. I obviously need to get more sleep. But, you know, there's so much more awareness now of the importance of sleep. And there's so much less machismo around this, you know, because people were constantly slicing their sleep, taking slices off their sleep to fit other things into their life. But now we've recognized that we really do need to be getting our sleep. And, you know, in 20 odd years of doing this work, I keep getting busier and busier, and that's because people are recognizing that we need to take sleep. We really need to take it seriously. What I'm encouraged by as well, and in my work, is I love showing people really practical ways of getting good sleep. I love busting through myths and misconceptions. So, you know, I had sleep problems from 6 months old until my 30s, and then got really sick and then came back from that. And that's where my work has come from. And so I know a lot about sleep, as well as studying it. It's an inside out approach, because I know what it feels like Daisy, to not sleep well. And 10 years in psychiatry of working with people with severe sleep problems, I've learned that there are so many myths and misconceptions around sleep problems that we can bust through and help people to get good sleep. So that's what I love about the work that I do, is helping people to understand why they're not sleeping and how they can get better sleep.
And what sort of myths are there? I'm fascinated by.
Okay, I'll just throw out a few.
Yeah.
One is that we can play catch up. Doesn't matter what time you go to bed, we just need 8 hours of sleep. Not true. You need to be getting to sleep before midnight, at least 3 or 4 nights a week, because that entrains the brain and the circadian rhythms to receive good, deep, restorative sleep. The myth about you shouldn't be waking up during the night. And so many people, of course, I'm wearing a wearable device at the moment, and I love them. I love knowing my steps and all that sort of thing. But, you know, people look at it and they go, oh, I woke up 4 times last night. You know, that this isn't good. It's normal to wake up during the night. Everyone wakes between 10 to 15 times a night. Every human being does, for survival. What we don't do is we don't remember all those times. And what you don't want to do is engage in stuff when you wake up, because it's going to bring you into full consciousness, which makes it harder to climb back down. So it's normal to wake up. It is normal to wake between 2 and 4 in the morning. And I spend a lot of time teaching people how to restore themselves and get back to sleep between 2 and 4 in the morning, including myself. You know, I'm certainly at that age hormonally where I have to put myself back to sleep most nights between 2 and 4 in the morning, you know. But what I don't do is check the clock. Don't look at the time. Don't have this in my bedroom charging up. So there are some really simple things that we can do, including don't fall asleep in front of the TV. So a lot of people glaze over in front of the TV with the eyes open. It's possible to sleep with your eyes open. And then they go to bed and they can't sleep because they've used up all their neuropeptides that they need for sleep, and they've used up the melatonin. So there's a whole load of things. I love dispelling myths. Because the minute people, like usually when I'm working with people, I get them to do a sleep quiz to start off. And then they learn what's false, what's true, and that starts repairing the relationship with sleep.
Well, some of the things you've mentioned already echo with me. I have blackout blinds, and I try really hard not to look at the clock when I wake up in the night. But such wise words, such important advice. Well, is there other advice? I'm very aware we're going to come to questions very, very soon. But Ellie, do you have some advice, particularly for the younger audience, and maybe Daisy, just quickly from you as well, on you know, how we can encourage them for good behaviours and, you know, good care of themselves? I don't know why I said younger. Why younger? All of us need it. In fact, I think I need it more now than I ever did when I was younger.
I mean, one thing for me with nighttime is it's kind of that nighttime ritual and kind of, I guess, preparing yourself for sleep. And so obviously my area is skin and skincare. And there are actually things that I think are quite helpful in terms of skincare and like calming and almost getting yourself ready for sleep. So, you know, there's things, I mean, we've been developing recently some night creams that are aimed at kind of that pre-sleep period and the nighttime. And of course, night creams and whether you go for a bath and all of these things can help in terms of relaxing and rewinding. And we've done a lot of work with Edwina Dunn as well, who've done a lot of research in the space of fragrances. So I think that's quite an interesting area in terms of relaxing and rewinding, have a bit of me time as well in the evening in terms of that nighttime ritual of maybe going and having a nice bubble bath with some nice fragrances. Things like lavender are great, and in terms of calming the body as well as the skin. So these sort of things, and that nighttime ritual, I think, is quite interesting. And and as I've been talking about the importance of speaking about it and going out and finding that information. There's so much out there now, and just being open. And I know, Daisy, as you say, your documentary there, it's just about being open about these things and having these conversations, I think, is really important.
Yeah, for sure. I would say keep talking. I would say find a community of other people that understand. You get so much validation from how you're feeling from that as well, which does just great things to the mind. And I also find that I'm with my insomnia, I have a problem with getting to sleep. So once I'm asleep, I'm down for the night. I find it more beneficial that I don't get into bed, or I don't go into my bedroom until I'm actually tired, until I think I can sleep. Because I find my bedroom becomes a really scary place at night. And if there is that added pressure that I have to be in bed at a certain time, it can bring about those really negative thoughts and feelings. So I don't actually get into bed until I am really tired and I feel like I could close my eyes and get some sleep.
Sorry, I'm busy clicking my unmute in time. So, okay. Well, look, wonderful advice. And honestly, Daisy, thank you so much for sharing your story, which I think has opened the floodgates on this conversation. You've done something, I think, quite special and very important. And I know there are a lot of questions out there. Shall we? Let's go through some of them, and hopefully it will trigger some other brilliant gems and recommendations from each of you. Holly, are you able to put up one of the first questions, please? Oh, here we go. From Wendy. Is there a difference between nighttime and sleep time? Between nighttime and sleep time, yes. I don't know what PPL means, so maybe you do. And in other hemispheres, night can be a full 12 hours. Wow, that's an important point, isn't it? Who's going to answer that one?
Are we talking about shift work here? Is that
that's how I read it? It's about shift work.
I'm struggling slightly to understand the question, but I'm wondering if that's what they're talking about.
I guess in winter, we sleep. It's been dark for a while now.
Yeah.
Whereas, and I don't know, historically, I guess people were driven, which I guess we talked about circadian rhythms earlier.
Yeah.
And that kind of night, day, and circadian rhythm cycles. So, I mean, perhaps Linda, you're probably best to answer this, but from a skin perspective, I would say that there are implications. If you are a shift worker, for example, it can have an impact on the skin. But circadian rhythms are important for skin, like they are for the rest of the body, in terms of those night-day switches and your body knowing when it's nighttime, and I guess the impact of using phones, as we've talked about, in terms of that blue light exposure for longer, having an impact on the skin and the body.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of work with shift workers, and past the age of about 35, 40, depending on your physiology, your genetics, shift work can really take its toll, not just on your skin, but on your general health. And this is where, if you're going to work shifts past those ages, you really need every trick in the book. You really need to look after yourself. And that means a holistic toolkit, because the way we sleep is a reflection of how we live. So lifestyle becomes very important if you're working odd time zones. So good hydration, decreasing caffeine intake, getting enough exercise, getting enough vitamin D in your diet, getting into natural daylight as much as possible. But all of those things really are important if you're working shifts as you get older, because it can impact your health.
Are they blue lights, or those special lights? Do they work?
As in, you mean things like the Lumi clocks that wake you up gradually?
Yeah,
they can do. And those are really good for shift workers. So there's a whole toolkit for shift workers where I recommend blackout blinds, having a fan in your bedroom. So if you come back from a night shift, put your fan on. Don't be obsessively checking your phone. Don't look at the time if you wake up. You really want to focus on resting. Get your nutrition right. Nutrition is really important for sleep, not just for shift workers, but for all of us in general. And it's part of my methodology is I have 5 non-negotiables, and the first one is to do with nutrition. But if you come back from a night shift and you want to be able to sleep for longer, have a small protein-based breakfast and then go to bed. Not a heavy meal, but a small meal. And that helps you to produce more of the hormones that help you to rest, the serotonin, oxytocin, melatonin, and stay off the caffeine during your shift. Keep active so that you don't need to keep drinking stimulants, you know.
And probably not alcohol, right?
No, alcohol is a stimulant. Well, it has a dual effect. It's a relaxant and a stimulant. So, you know, you have a little bit to drink and you think, you know, oh, I feel great and really relaxed. But then it will wake you up usually in the early hours because of the detoxifying, the effect on the liver. And it stops you breaking down adrenaline. And so it has a stimulant effect. So usually if you've drunk too much, you'll wake in the early hours and then you can't sleep. You don't get any deep sleep and you get a very disordered REM sleep. And it's not good for your skin because it dehydrates, doesn't it, Ellie?
It does, yes, indeed, yeah.
And then the dark circles. Yes,
Yeah.
Let's not say anymore. Next question, please. Okay, what are some of the warning signs of sleep deprivation? Oh, yes. Well, Ellie, you must know some of the, Daisy, you must know some of these because you've lived through so many of them, I would imagine.
Yes, absolutely. So I find that when I haven't had a good night's sleep for a couple of days, even weeks at times when it's been at its worst, I find I really suffer with migraines. And they will sort of be paralyzing and I won't be able to work for the rest of the day. It's not great. I also find, which was one of the most concerning side effects, which actually pushed me to make the documentary and to put more of a focus on this, was I found that my heart almost felt like it was beating at an irregular pace, or I couldn't catch my breath. So there were very, very physical effects that I feel when I'm really sleep deprived, but also the emotional side of things. My emotions just do not feel stable at all. I'm very emotional. I feel as though I can't handle what I'm usually able to handle on a good night's sleep. So yeah, everything is just sort of out of sorts, but the headaches and the breathlessness are really what I experience, the physical effects of sleep deprivation. Those are the first warning signs for me.
Wow, really hard to cope with, yes. Narina, are these things that you find in your work and the conversations that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as Daisy said, you know, for her, migraines are the thing that happens. You know, my daughter's the same. She suffers from really bad migraines. And if she needs more sleep than most people do. I mean, she's a teenager, but she still needs a huge amount of sleep. And if not, it'll trigger a migraine. So whatever it is that tends to happen, you know, as I said, for me, it was psoriasis and things like that. So look out for those things, but also the emotional effects, making mistakes, lots of mistakes, you know, cognitive, mental impairment, just not able to concentrate. It's taking you longer to get stuff done. And look for changes in your lifestyle. Look for things like just really needing more coffee to get you through the day or more sugary snacks. Look for things like then needing more alcohol to help you wind down, or just thinking, I can't be bothered to go to the gym today, or withdrawing socially and you know, just I haven't got the energy. I'd much rather becoming almost overly obsessed with your sleep because you're not sleeping well and thinking I'm not going to go out tonight. And so you start withdrawing socially. And the thing is, if we're happy and we're engaging with other people, you sleep better, you know? So it becomes a vicious cycle. So looking for all of those sorts of changes. But, you know, in the world, we've had some major industrial accidents as a result of people suffering from sleep deprivation, you know, Exxon Valdez, that sort of thing. Oil tankers, you know, lorry drivers driving trucks through the night, big crashes as a result of people not sleeping well, sleep deprivation. So it's something that needs to be taken seriously.
Very serious condition, yeah. Okay, next question. Does meditation help? Where would you recommend I look for a beginner's guide? Who
Shall I
wants
go?
to answer that? Yes, please.
So I think things like Insight Timer are great. Have a look at that. Look at the Calm app. Look at Headspace, because I think, you know, shop around and see what you know, what voice, what method really appeals to you. Try a few things and see, you know, what really works for you. Can I shamelessly plug, because I made some meditations which are on Audible as well. There are 12 meditations on Amazon Audible, which I filmed in my dining room earlier this year in February because I couldn't get to a studio. There's some really, really simple little meditations that you can do. And if we have time today, I can even show people a 60-second one, which is really good for helping you to get to sleep. But let's just see how we go with time.
No, do it now. Let's do it. 60 seconds.
Okay, so in this meditation, let's just all try this now. We're going to do something really, really silly. And just wherever you are right now, I'm just going to say some words. And I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes and repeat those words, the same words that I say, but to yourself silently as I say them. Okay, and it's going to be a bit silly, but go for it. Just trust me on this, okay? So should we try? I'm going to close my eyes. So we close our eyes, just settle back into the chair. And let's just get started. So imagine you're lying in bed, you're trying to get to sleep, or you've woken in the early hours, you're trying to get back to sleep. You haven't looked at the time because you've remembered what we've said. And you're going to try and use this meditation to put yourself back to sleep. Okay, so here we go. Just repeating silently after me. I love my left foot. I love my left ankle. I love my left lower leg. I love my left knee. I love my entire left leg. I love my left hip. Okay, if you open your eyes and come back now. So you don't want to do I'm not going to do the whole thing now because otherwise it'll take time, but you basically start with your foot, either one, right or left. The reason we're saying foot is because it brings you out of the head and to the opposite end of your body, out of the thinking mind. The reason I'm saying love is because often when we wake up or we can't get to sleep, we go into self-flagellation. You didn't do this. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. That's going to happen. We make the most unloving conversations with ourselves. So we use the word love as a form of self-suggestion. Now, that's the most boring exercise in the world to do. So what will happen is you've given your mind something to think about, but you're not saying think about that worry, that one, and that one. You're saying just think about where I'm taking you. You will fall asleep. And then you'll wake up going, oh my goodness, I started with my foot and now I'm on my nose. What happened? You go right back to the starting point and you repeat it. And that's the important thing. You keep repeating it. Even if you have to keep going back to, I love my left foot. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. I love it. It's just the sort of thing we all need sometime in the next few months. So thank you. I think it's wonderful to have something that we'll all be there counting our legs and ankles. And what do you think of it, Daisy?
I am a massive fan of it. I'm a massive fan of meditation as well. I think you're so right, Irina, in terms of we're so critical of ourselves when we wake up in the middle of the night or when we're struggling to get to sleep. And I find that having a really good self-care regime is really helpful, and it can really calm me down before getting into bed. I often find that, for me personally, I don't know if anyone else relates to this, but Sundays are always a bad day for me. When it gets to around 6, 7, 8 o'clock, I start feeling really, really anxious because I know that I've got a fresh week ahead of work. And I'm conscious that everyone else is settling down and winding down into their routine. So I will do things. I'll treat myself kindly, and I'll do things like meditate or take a bath or light some candles, just to treat myself and make myself feel good. So no, that definitely helps out, and I will be using that tonight. Thank you.
Try it. And the nice thing about that is you don't have to switch something on to do that exercise. It's so simple. There's no plinky plonky music. There's no waterfalls or anything like that. It's just you scanning your body, go up to the top of your head, then go back down, end on your right foot. Hopefully you shouldn't be going that, you shouldn't get that far down, you know, but that's just one of several types of exercise that you can use to put yourself back to sleep. And the other is just simple breath awareness, in, following your breath in, out as you breathe out, in and out, just following your breathing. But the important thing is find some way of bringing yourself back into your body, out of the head, back into the body, even if it means rub your belly or put your hand on your chest and just think, who do I love in my life? Who do I love? What happened in my day that I love? To bring safety into your body again. And people who think loving thoughts, by the way, it's really good for your skin to think loving. Don't you think, Ellie? When we
I do, yeah. Positivity and thinking positively.
Exactly. I'm 95.
Smiling. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice. What a lovely thought that by loving ourselves and feeling happy and thinking about happy things is going to be so good for us all round. That's beautiful. I don't know whether we have time for any more, Holly. You're in charge. Is there time for one more, or shall we end on a happy note? She's not putting one up, so we're ending on a happy note. Well, honestly, thank you so much for what was an amazing session. And, you know, I've been there. I've had this feeling. Sometimes it's really special, your advice. And Daisy, again, I would just say thank you for sharing what you've been through. It's so important. And you've just opened the way for so many people to talk about it. So
welcome.
Thank you to our beautiful audience who always get involved and who I know will have soaked up your very, very good advice. So thank you finally to Dr. Eleanor Bradley, Dr. Narina Ramlarkan, I hope I said that right, and Daisy Maskell. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.